Cold open at 5 minutes after 8 o'clock on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And we're at 53. We've been down as low as 48 this morning, but the temperature is starting to rebound after a couple of days of what you might call fall-like temperatures across the valley. Joining us this morning, Coach Pete Coulson, and joins us about on a monthly basis or so, and just gives us some thoughts about what's going on around the world and around the region. Bill Colley with you, too, on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. And I do want to point out, too, the coach is in the middle of a lot of other work at the moment, so he's graciously giving us some of his time this morning, which is very, very valuable. We'll point that out. First of all, Coach, welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to be able to have a conversation with you and kind of discuss life and the value of life and the value of people.
In fact, as we were talking off air, you were telling me that the country lacks critical thinkers.
Oh, that's it. I mean, it's so apparent, and it's frustrating when people just listen to one perspective and don't get all the information. We become in such an instant gratification society. We fail to think things through.
In fact, I was sharing some sound earlier this morning from some young men, and they are young black conservative men, and they had gone to a Black Lives Matter demonstration just to have a dialogue with some of the demonstrators. And one of them said that that the BLM demonstrators were saying President Trump's a racist, and the first question they said is, well, tell me something racist he said, and the demonstrators couldn't do it. In other words, you accept a premise, but no one any longer, when you speak of critical thinking, no one any longer is coming up with any evidence to back up what they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. We judge a book by its cover, but we don't get the content of a person's personality, what makes them tick. We just listen to what people say, and we see that as gospel truth, and 90% of the time, we're wrong.
I was thinking about this shooting in Portland over the weekend where...
Oh, goodness gracious.
That has... and maybe I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the exact quote, but if I recall, the people behind the shooting were running around screaming, we got one, or something to that effect. When we see something like that, I was just talking about this before the break, but we appear now to have crossed a line culturally that we had not yet crossed, but it seems we've gotten there in a matter of just a few weeks.
Yes, I'm just appalled that our politicians aren't standing up for what is right at both sides. I mean, we just need to take a stance for value of life and respect of humanity and respect of differences. And that just doesn't seem to cross people's line. We tend to bend to whatever wind comes our way. I mean, I look at Drew Brees and him wearing that gentleman's name on his helmet. Come on, folks. Where's your grounding? Where are your fundamentals of life and value of life?
Well, you know what? I respect that athletes, have opinions. I've got an opinion. You've got an opinion.
We all do.
but good grief, I don't think he knows a lot about this. We're talking about the guy in Kenosha who was shot by police, but he was shot because he'd gone to a party and he'd been accused by the mother of his children of sexual abuse or sexual assault,
right.
Which is why police confronted him in that situation. So if you put his name across your helmet, I guess you're thinking you're standing up against what might be police brutality, but you're celebrating an accused rapist.
Right. I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, I look at these athletes and they're boycotting things like that. Okay, professionals, let's take a year of time out of our sports and take the money we could make and invest it in the lives of the community. That's when you could see a difference, when you use it for educating, for helping people understand, yes, there's inequities in society, but how can we help each other become responsible human beings, respecting each other's opinions by having an appropriate example of encouragement, empowerment.
I'd said yesterday on the air, and of course I guess I'm just speculating because I don't know Taysom Hill, he being Drew Brees' backup in the Saints system, but being an Idaho boy, I said he probably wouldn't do something like that, but who knows any longer? A lot of times athletes, you're so involved with, and your role, if you're going to continue beyond high school and college and sports, you got to constantly be training so that you can maintain a certain level and keep that job and keep that income. So they don't necessarily have a lot of time to be looking at other things around the world and making any decisions about that, which is why I say when you mentioned critical thinking and that sometimes people don't get all the information they need, uh, even though these people are well known and they may be very good at what they do, they just may not have all the information they need before they come out and make a statement.
Well, I really appreciate the quote by Paulo Coelho. The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. These professionals and even local individuals get so caught up in an opinion, they forget about having an example of responsibility that changes behavior. And that's what needs to happen. We don't see it happening. Everybody's just standing up, but there's no substance to their stance. And they get upset because, okay, people aren't coming to the game. Well, that's their choice, but you're not helping the process.
I got to point out, Coach Pete Coulson joining us this morning. It is almost 12 minutes after 8 o'clock. We're at 52 on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Bill Cowley as well on Magic Valley this morning. And the number, if you'd like to reach the coach, is 208-736-0300. That's 208-736-0300. And, Coach, I believe we have a caller joining us.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the air with Coach Coulson. Go ahead.
Oh, good morning. Hey, I'm sorry if I'm off topic, but I was listening on my telephone out walking here, and you guys were talking about that shooting in Portland, and I just wanted to make a quick comment that they were actually, when they were saying, they said, hey, we got one here, so they were actually calling out the location to the other ones that had guns, and I watched a bunch of videos on that, and it just looks to me like they're actually hunting them, and I just thought it just blows me away, and I'm just happy they have the shooter. They're pretty sure they have the shooter now, but
yeah,
it was as if they were hunting the conservative protesters.
Yeah, that's a good point to be made, and I'll get the coach's reaction to this. Coach, we talked about this, a couple of minutes ago, that the depravity involved in what's going on here, and that we seem to have, I don't know, people have lost respect for other human beings who they don't agree with. In other words, if I don't agree with you, then I'm somehow less than human.
Right. I mean, I think we've just kind of disassociate ourselves in becoming into a false reality that life doesn't matter. Life does matter at all levels. Everybody has value and significance no matter what their walk in life is, whether they're skinny, whether they're fat, whether they're pink, whether they're blue, whatever. That doesn't matter. Everybody has value and is significant and make a difference in their community, and we don't respect that. I mean, I look at what they showed that video of Nancy Pelosi. She's just kind of superseding her own criticism about wearing masks.
Yeah.
Because she uses her status to get her way. And that's a wrong example. She has no level of humility. And that's what's frustrating to me, is that we're not seeing very good examples of humility and empowering each other.
Well, a friend referenced a book the other day on Facebook, and I actually had just read the book a few months ago. Paul Thompson had loaned it to me, and it's about ordinary men from Germany during World War II, many of them Christians, who went off to Poland and then Ukraine and Russia and did some abominable things. And yet they had, in their lives beforehand, they had been butchers and bakers and school teachers and clerks, and yet they were able somehow to dehumanize other people in just large numbers. And what happened in Portland is that in a microcosm, it's just the guy who they're going to likely arrest in all of this after he's the person of interest, probably led what he thought was a pretty standard normal life up until now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're so brainwashed because they get caught in their own unrealistic reality. And I think that's the best way to solve problems. So there's so many angry people out there because they didn't get what they wanted because they didn't put the effort in what they wanted. And I think that they blame the system for the lack of successes. And I'm like you, I research a lot of people and look what people are saying. And the common denominator seems to be, hand me this because I deserve it. Nobody deserves anything. You get that by your own effort and hard work. You discipline yourself to be the best that you can be and let the chips fall where they may. And some chips may be hard chips and some chips may be easy, but allow those processes of life to develop you to be the best that you can be.
Well, you could probably be a walking example and talking example of this, because your beginning in life was, I won't say it was disadvantaged, but you did not have a lot of advantages that other people had. And yet you went on to live many of your dreams. No one really gave you anything along the way, though. These were things you learned some discipline and you did on your own.
Yeah, you have to do a lot of self-sacrifice. You have to be willing to suck it up sometimes and ignore the noise around you and listen to what you feel is best for yourself. Don't try to be like Charlie. Be Pete, be Bill, and be the best Bill and Pete that you can be. Don't try to put yourself in some other people's molds. And when I got myself in the difficulties, when I was trying to compare myself to somebody else, and I don't have that same skill set.
Yeah.
You have to be honest with yourself and recognize this is what I can do and this is what I can't do, and then have those friends in your life that tell you what you need to hear.
Well, I've experienced that. What you just brought up, when I was working in television back in the mid to late 1990s, one of my best friends at the job was a guy named David Muir, who now anchors ABC News Monday through Friday nights. And David, he ended up, we had a bit of a contest between the two of us who was going to be the 11 o'clock news anchor, and he got the nod from management. And I was a little hurt by that at first, but I also realized almost immediately that he was much better at it than I was, and so I had to find other areas and other areas of my life and play to those strengths, because again, we're different people.
Right, and I think it's in the coaching profession. Everybody always wants to be the head coach, and I never had that aspiration really, because I was content where I was, because I saw a lot of the frustration the head coach had to go through. He wasn't only the coach of the players, he was the coach of the parents, he was coach of the community. I mean, he was criticized at so many different levels. I didn't want that headache, but I had to look at that and say, okay, what do I want? How do I want to impact lives? And come up with a way that I can do that in a healthy way and allow the head coach to guide me as an assistant coach and be comfortable with that. Because together, the team concept, together, everybody achieves more. We can't do it by ourselves. And that's what we're trying to become individuals, and you cannot do life that way.
I had a few more questions for you. We've got to get to a break here in just a short while, but we do want to point out you are, of course, on the road frequently as a public speaker. If people wanted to get in touch with you, what would they do?
Email me at coachcoulson@gmail.com. That's probably the easiest way to do that. Just drop me a line, and then I will respond back.
And you spell Coulson Coulson.
Correct.
Right, because I have a friend here in the Valley who's same name, but he does not use the U in the name. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, which usually means, though, somebody just at some point along in history dropped the letter or.
Well, it's easier than spelling halodic every day.
Yeah. Hey, we've got more coming up with Coach Pete in just a few minutes. We're coming up on 20 minutes after 8 o'clock. It is 55. Bill Colley with you, too, on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Also, Sergeant Ken Menzel from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office scheduled to join us just after 8:30 this morning. Coach Pete Coulson with us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It is 56. We're at 8:21. Bill Colley on Magic Valley this morning as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And Coach, you were just telling me something during the break, and the word popped into my head: empathy. And that may be what we're lacking any longer when it comes to our dealings with people who, people aren't attacking each other any longer over race or ethnicity so much as over, just different political views, which got to be new in this country. At least in my lifetime, I've never seen it quite like this, but we don't share the empathy for our fellow man that we used to.
Oh, I mean, that's so obvious, but that's so necessary to really impact the community in a healthy ways. Put yourself in the other person's shoe. I'm hopefully when I talk with people, it's not what I say, it's not what I do, it's how do I make them feel as an individual? What have I said to empower them to become the best they can be? And that's your empathy. And sometimes empathy is just saying, hey, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to listen to what's going on in their mind and process through whatever the agony they're going through for that day, and maybe come back to that at another time. But don't try to resolve all the issues at one time. Take time to understand and learn where that person's at in life.
I have a comment from someone listening in Hazelton who says they agree with much of what you're talking about, and they say, united we stand, divided we fall. Although he points out, in his view, he said Democrats are creating much of the division in this country, and I am a little bit biased myself as a registered Republican, but as you were pointing out earlier, doesn't matter what party you're in, everybody has to figure out how to do this a little bit better.
Oh, definitely. I mean, as a referee, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or neutral, whatever. I'm going to try to orchestrate the game what is the best for each individual. And I'm going to take into account what their biases are. I'm going to say, what can I do to help them become the best player, the best person to achieve their goal? And don't worry about the outcome. And I think sometimes we're so worried about the outcome, we forget about the process.
Yeah. Oh, you pointed out earlier, that's a long process. It requires, again, a lot of dedication.
Oh, yeah, you have to sometimes just take some time out. I mean, every day you're faced with various challenges. How do you face them in a responsible way? Our education system, kids are suffering now because they're home. Parents are getting frustrated because online doesn't give them personal interaction with other people. And that's what young people need today. They need to learn how to interact with one another. The classroom, the education is not just the classroom. Education is life. And being the ins and out of life, the getting up in the morning, doing the bed, doing chores, all those other aspects of life that help you mold yourself to be the best you can be.
I was thinking, about how so much of this is so similar to a problem we've probably all experienced, and that is road rage, because it's one of those moments where if you act on it in the first couple of minutes after it happens, it can be a bad outcome. On the other hand, if you decide that you're going to wait 5 minutes, then you usually forget about it.
Right. I mean, this too will pass. And I think some are afraid to let it pass. Or the other thing, I think sometimes people are afraid to fail. And failure is part of life. Nothing in life is ever going to be perfect. Not a one thing that I can think of. And so you have to become that person that can fail forward, fixing your attitude and actions intentionally so you can learn. And that's just a constant daily reminder of ourselves that we need to learn to let the bad things happen and learn from them, because life is never, ever perfect. Anyway, I've never seen it in my time.
You bring that up, and I was thinking the other day that throughout my life, I have tried to sit back and envision what my life would look like in 5 years. And of course, I always try to envision it in the rosiest views, but it has never ended up, no matter what stage of life, it's never ended up like I envisioned it 5 years before or even 2 years before.
No, because you mold yourself accordingly. And you hopefully mold yourself to be the better person rather than a better person. And I think right now we have a lot of bitterness going on in our society because of a certain outcome that wasn't seen their way. So now we're going to just demolish our whole society because of that. That's ludicrous. And I think that's what people forget, that, life is about processes. Learning is about a process. And in the process, sometimes you're not going to get the A all the time. I don't know what an A looks like. Well, I had a few of them. Not very many. But the thing about it is, I look at some of my friends at a 4.0, they can't figure out life. They're so worried about making everything so perfect, they can't accept imperfection. And that makes life difficult.
Well, if we don't get through this, and I think you said it will pass, but if we were not to get through it, I don't think any of us would like what would replace it. I guess we have not stood back and thought about what this country and culture would look like if we just tried to start all over.
Right. And I think it gives us all a wake-up call. What can we do in our local communities to make efforts? It starts one person at a time. It's just like taking a timeout for a kid that might be having a little temper tantrum on the basketball court and talking to his mother and finding out, oh, he just lost his dad. But it puts the whole concept of sports and individuality in a whole different perspective, because I need to worry about that person. What is going in that person's life to help him deal with that void, whatever that may be?
We got about 60.
And that's what empathy is.
We got about 60 seconds to go. And of course, you being a Christian, we should point out too that perhaps if we could find a way to revive faith for a lot of people, that may help them through this time.
Oh, 100%. Without God, it's impossible to do anything. That's my bottom line. I mean, he's been my best friend because he knows me better than anybody, and yet he still loves me. He gives me the ability to love other people in an unconditional way, because the same God that loves Trump is the same God that loves Biden, is the same God that loves Obama, is the same God that loves Hitler, and the list goes on, because he's a God of unconditional love, grace, and mercy. And that's the fundamental things my parents taught me, is love Christ, and everything else will fall accordingly.
Coach, again, we want to thank you for your time this morning, and we'll tee this up again in a few weeks and do it all over again.
I look forward to the opportunity, and God bless you, my friend, and you're my prayers. I know you've had some challenges in your life, and I just appreciate your friendship.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
All right, and the prayers are going out your way too as well.
Okay. God bless. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks to Coach Pete Coulson for joining us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It is coming up at 8:30. We're at 52. We're going to be joined by Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office Sergeant Ken Menzel in just a few minutes. I have a very funny post though from Brock in Twin Falls. He said, speaking of road rage, he said, of course, when somebody cuts me off, I get a little angry, but when I cut someone else off and they're angry with me, I think, hey, it was an accident. 54 at 8:30 on KLIX.